Would like to welcome JP Wisers to the Sheet. Joining me now, Don Livermore, a former official as well. He wore the bands. But before we get there, let's talk about the bottles and the Stanley Cup on the bottles. Give us the origin story here.
We were just inspired by the Stanley Cup playoffs. JP Wisers represents convivial moments with friends and family, and we wanted to bring the design onto the label of the JP Wisers Deluxe and the JP Wisers 10-year. I think he did a fantastic job. One of the visuals on the 10-year just raising the cup, and it has me all excited, certainly for the playoffs, me personally being a hockey fan.
You know, we've seen JP Wisers do partnerships with NHL Alumni. I still have a Larry Robinson bottle kicking around somewhere here in the in the house. Describe to us the nature of the relationship now between JP Wisers and the National Hockey League.
Well, JP Wisers has gone into a multi-year agreement with the NHL since October 2024. JP Wisers certainly wants to be inspired by the pride and the passion and fueled by the Canadian hockey fans out there. And it's a partnership that's been building for a long time tradition. And we want to bring together those moments of family and friends. I know we're going to have some limited edition bottles certainly with the JP Wisers Deluxe with the Stanley Cup on it and the JP Wisers 10-year. There's going to be co-branded promotional merchandise. We're going to have some in-stores signings, some social media contests. And I think it's all going to build up to certainly the Stanley Cup final. And I think it just works quite well with JP Wisers.
You know, this is just a question on a personal note of all the individual players, and we'll think of Doug Gilmour and Ryan Smith. Do you have a favorite?
I actually, Guy Lafleur, I think, was my favorite, to be honest with you. When I first met I thought he would be smaller in stature and everything. He was taller than I thought. And when I shook his hands were just big. He had big mitts. Yeah. And you can see why he could wire the puck like he did, certainly throughout his career. And I said to Guy, I said, Guy, I said, you were my hero when as a child. I still have a jersey with Guy with the 10-year-old. He kind of grinned and smiled and everything else. And he quickly tended the conversation. He wanted to get to blending whiskey. So it was such a memorable moment. But you know what? I think I could pick on Guy, but all of them had their own special moment with me. And I just love that partnership with the JP Wisers and the Alumni Association. I think it was just nice just giving back to those alumni that's in need, and I think that was a fantastic thing that JP Wisers has done.
So share that conversation then. So you're describing the distilling process to Guy Lafleur. What does that sound like?
So for us with Canadian whiskey and JP Wisers in particular, it's unique in the fact that it's all about the blending. We ferment corn separately, rye separately, barley separately, wheat separately, distill it separately, we age it separately, and we put it together at the end. That's why they have a job like mine as a master blender. Other whiskey categories, like the bourbon category, puts the grain and the greenies together at the start, and that doesn't allow very much for innovation. Whereas we've kind of separated everything. And for me, as designing a recipe, I can dial things up, I can dial things down, and that's what I showed the NHL alumni who came here to do the story, and they crafted all their own whiskeys. They chose ingredients that was personal to them. And when Manny McDonald was here, he talked about growing up in the wheat fields of Saskatchewan. So he wanted to bring wheat into his. And Larry Robinson, he wanted French oak because of his connection, certainly with the Montreal Canadiens. And when Paul Coffey was here, I mean, we had a big bowl of whiskey. He played hockey that same way. And they all made whiskeys on that style. And I think JP Wisers, even as a brand, it just goes well with hockey together.
So who got into it? Who got into it the most?
Yvonne Cornway.
Roadrunner, really?
Yes. He came here and he came with a little napkin and he said, "This is what I want. This is the whiskey I drink." I know. Well, we don't quite make it like here, but we came to the end. He was right into. He had a little napkin. I think he drew it up on the plane when he came here. But it was quite memorable. And Martin Brodeur, when he was here, he was so cerebral about it. He put a lot of thought into it. You can tell why he's involved in hockey today, why he has the jobs that he has. So it was a lot of fun. You could see the personalities
sure.
Each and every one of them.
JP Wisers very much involved in the growth of hockey. Why this investment in the growth of the sport?
I think hockey and JP Wisers just kind of matches. We have there's a lot of pride and passion when people play hockey. You know it, Jeff. You
Oh
interview
yeah.
all these people. For me, if you're to come and visit the people here, there's 400 people here that work at a distillery. The pride and passion they have when they make whiskey, and it's just like a team. I mean, you only make whiskey as your weakest link. We have experts in grain, we have experts in fermentation, we got experts in bottling, we got engineers, we got scientists, and we all pulled together. And I think if you had a chance to visit us and chat with each and every one of our employees, you could see that passion come through. And I think us making whiskey and playing hockey is very similar. And I think it just shines. It really does shine in terms of what Canada and Canadianism is. Canadian whiskey's been here for a long time. I have to say Canada was built on whiskey. If I have a chance to be the history lesson of it. And certainly hockey is part of Canada too. And I think they go hand in hand.
This kind of might be an oddball question. I'm going to throw it out there and see if it has any life. I'm a fan of old hockey photographs. And one of the things that we don't see in hockey anymore because, well, the arenas are well lit now, the shadow game is gone. We don't see shadows on the ice anymore. And I look at a lot of old photographs and I look at the shadow game and it's cool, but it's lost. Let me try to get this into the world of whiskey. Whether it's barrels, perhaps bottles. Do you have favorite, this is an oddball question, I know. Do you have favorite whiskey photographs? Or something you look at and you go like, yeah, you know what? That hits me where I live.
I've written a book. The Keeper of History. I've written a book on it. If anyone wants to, that's I've got some old photography in the book, and then the front cover of that book that I just showed you is our whiskey aging warehouse in 1895. And in that warehouse, you can see the excise officer sitting there reading the newspaper, watching the alcohol being aged. Because I wasn't joking, Canada was built on whiskey. The very earliest days, Canadians, we weren't even income taxed in 1917. We're 50 years a country before we paid an income tax. And the 5 largest taxpayers in Canada was Gunnar Hemingway, Hiram Walker, J.P. Wisers, Henry Corby, and Joseph Seagrams. We were really built on the backs of the whiskey producer. And when I see that excise officer sitting inside watching to make sure that alcohol wasn't being stolen or things like that, he wanted to assure that the tax dollars and the income of Canada. So pictures like that, it does pull a string hard. There's a few more pictures I can show. You can see when they used to buy whiskey in the earliest days, they weren't sold by bottle, they were sold by barrel. And I have an old picture that they were rolling it off the cart into the distillery and they would fill up that barrel and that you could bring it home and drink. Like, yeah, it pulls my, pictures like that just really help me understand where whiskey came from and where we need to go into the future. I can't forget the past. That's why I named the book The Keeper of the History. So I know where to go as a future and steer the whiskey category inside of Canada.
There's probably a different answer depending on the person that you talk to. In hockey, we look at Wayne Gretzky and say, oh, the GOAT, the greatest of all time, all of it. Is there a Wayne Gretzky of whiskey?
JP Weiser himself, I got to say, he, in a sense that back in the 1857, when he bought a distillery, he bought the distillery for the purpose of growing cattle. He knew the waste from a distillery would grow his cattle faster than anything else because we strip all the starch out of the grape to make the alcohol. Then what's left over is high protein feed. He understood that in the 1850s. You got to be kidding me. He understood nutrition back in the day. Wow. When they're talking about genetics and pasteurization and things like that. He got it. He knew the full life cycle of a distillery, and it was for the purpose of agriculture. And we're very connected to our agriculture community today. We get 90% of our grain within 60 miles of here. It's all Canadian. It's local. We get our rye a little further out on the north shore of Lake Erie and Huron County and Perth County in that area as well. But I mean, he understood that. So is he a GOAT? He's part of it. I mean, he understood the agricultural influence to what we were doing. I could pick on a few other people, but and I think hockey's the same way. You just saw Ovechkin get the record. I mean, there's contributors to why Canadian whiskey tastes the way it does today.
So what does it for you? Like why, you find yourself deep in this in this industry and a very prominent position. How did you come by this? I'm always curious how people get into hockey, and I honestly I don't know anyone who's in your position. I'm genuinely curious. There's a old World War I saying that goes, "I came for my country, but I stayed for my friends." Why did you come and why did you stay?
I really, my intention was not to, I didn't even know there was such a job as a master blender when I went to the University of Waterloo. I got a microbiology degree, and then I'm not even from Windsor. I'm from Listowel, Ontario. Somebody pointed out there's a job interview, so they're hiring a microbiologist. Hey, I came here, and I've stayed here for 29 years. The company's been great to me, Jeff. Yeah, that they pay for 100% of my education, where I did my Master's of Science in Brewing and Distilling in Edinburgh, Scotland. Then I finished my PhD in Brewing and Distilling in 2012. And the funny that the day I defended my thesis was the same day I got promoted as the master blender. And the master blender's job is to invent whiskey. Somebody has to, Jeff. I mean, think of all the foods and all the things out there. There are inventors, and that's my role as the company. And whiskey's a little bit of a long-term commitment, because what I'm doing today, I may not even get credit for down the road. So I got to leave my whiskey inventory in a better position than I found it. And that's my philosophy as a blender, is to give good ingredients to the next person who's going to take over my role.
Okay. I know you used to wear the bands. You used to be a referee. You've tucked those away, though. Time to make choices. Pick a Canadian team to end the drought that goes back to 1993. Who's it going to be?
Jeff, that's a loaded question when I have all my new fan out there. I'll tell you a personal story, though. I'm 52 years old, and the JP Wisers had the chance to bring the Stanley Cup to the distillery here, where all our 400 employees got a chance. I touched it, Jeff. I know that's a no. That's a
no. It's fun. No, I can't stand stuff like that. Go for it. Touch it. I had at Nick Boynton's Stanley Cup party in Nobleton, Ontario. I had my then 2-week-old son in the cup. Don't worry about it. The curses don't exist.
52. I'm not going to go into my hockey career as long as it, although I still play. But I had a chance to touch my hands on the teams, on the Canadian teams in particular. And I'm telling you, as those rings go down the cup, Jeff, that's starting to be a very big disappointment to me as a Canadian to see them fall off. And I think we need to end the drought, and I think there's a great opportunity. We're on the cusp of having 6 teams, Canadian teams, go to the Stanley Cup playoffs this year. And the last time that happened was 1993. We know what happened in 1993. So I'm hoping the drought will end this year.
Favorite storyline heading into the playoffs?
My favorite storyline is certainly the Battle of Ontario. I mean, that's gonna be good. I watched the Montreal Ottawa game there the other night. Man, those two teams look pretty good, and the Leafs are gonna have their hands full, and Ottawa's got a great team, and certainly the Western divisions. But I think that Battle of Ontario is gonna be really big storyline, at least on the first round. I'm sure there'll be other storylines, but that would be a good first round, I think, to see that.
You ever miss blowing the whistle?
Yeah. If you ask me, if I was my favorite job in the world was to referee hockey, and I always wanted to get to the NHL level. Never made a career of it. It's very tough to make it to that level, but I always had that desire, and I do miss it. I do miss when there's nothing more gratifying when you've refereed a hockey game and it was a job well done, and both teams said, yeah, it was done fairly, and things like that. It's one of the best feelings in the world.
It is great. There used to be an official in the NHL. This goes back to the 1940s, 50s, who would hold the puck up in front of his linesman and say, "Gentlemen, remember, when I drop this round black thing, the 3 of us become the only sane people in this building, and all I have to do is drop this puck." It's a great one. Don, listen, thanks so much for stopping by today. Very much looking forward to this partnership, and very much looking forward to the Stanley Cup playoffs, as you are as well. Thanks for being part of it.
Thank you, Jeff.
If you enjoyed that video, and we certainly hope that you do, please hit the subscribe button right there here at Daily Faceoff. I will put this lineup up against any hockey lineup anywhere. It all gets underway at 9 o'clock Eastern with Morning Cup of Hockey. That is Johnny Lazarus. That is Colby Cohen. Then at noon, it's DFO Live. And then 3 o'clock Eastern, The Sheet. Get caught up on everything in hockey.